Thor Love and Thunder is out in just a few days, and we're going to give our thoughts, theories, and predictions right now. What is up, everybody? Jersey Comic Crew here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. First thing I think that's on everybody's mind is Jane Foster becoming Thor, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of questions coming into this. The first thing I want to tackle is the cancer angle that we saw in the comics. In the comics, we know that she gets cancer, she's dying, and then eventually she gets bestowed the power of Thor's because Thor is unworthy at the moment. And then that allows her to stop the cancer from spreading as much. But when she uses the power, she continues to die. Do you think the whole cancer angle of her using the powers, she might die, that's why she got the powers, is going to be at play here? Or do you think they're not even going to touch upon that? They're going to go in a whole different direction?
No, I think it's going to be in it. I think it's been basically confirmed that the cancer is part of the story. We've seen shots of Natalie Portman on set where she, different makeup, looks a little drawn. Normal as Jane Foster. Thor's in normal, Earth clothes, walking with her and talking with her. I think that is going to be a prevalent part of this movie. And as we know, Taika Waititi loves to kind of combine some things, right? There's some funny, there's some dark, there's some sad.
Sure.
I think it's definitely a part of this. And I think it's because of the ether that she absorbed in Thor the Dark World. I think, as we talked about, as we've seen in Endgame and Infinity War, when Hulk is kind of talking about the Infinity Stones, he says they kind of emanate this radiation, this gamma radiation, right? And if you're not Bruce Banner or his cousin Jen, that radiation is still very poisonous to the human body. And Jane being absorbed with that in arguably the worst Marvel movie might connect to this and make a whole lot more sense and have a new avenue for that movie to thrive. So I think the ether might play a part of it. Jane's past with Thor, that may have caused the cancer. And Rob, I think we're going to get this every time she uses Mjolnir. Don't know how she's going to get that back yet. But every time Mjolnir is used and she turns into the Mighty Thor, I think she's going to have to start her chemo over just like in the comics, making her sicker and closer to death in kind of this time clock situation.
I would like that. I think that'd be a cool angle to explore in the MCU. A part of me believes that this Thor, this Jane Foster Mighty Thor is from another multiverse. I think they're doing so much multiverse stuff, and I'm like, all right, Marvel, just throw another multiverse thing. There's Jane Foster from another multiverse who has cancer, and she got this powers and that kind of stuff, and they could do that whole angle, and it's kind of like letting Thor know, like, hey, you need to pay attention to the Earthlings at home, pay attention to all that kind of stuff, and then maybe our Jane Foster actually has cancer in the real MCU. I think that might be another angle they might hit on.
I think it's a little bit of a stretch just because the second you bring multiverse Jane Foster in, it lessens our connection, right? Our connection to Jane is not like our connection to Thor or any of the major characters, but we have history with that character, right? So if we find out this backstory, since Thor's been gone, what she's been doing, kind of catching up, I think that is way sadder and more pulling on the heartstrings than just it's just a multiversal Jane.
Okay.
I think it adds to the kind of overall emotion of the story. But I don't know if the connection with her cancer might necessarily be with the hammer. I think that could be the difference. We see in the trailer, there's a shot of Jane kind of landing inside of this massive hall. And there's a bunch of statues. One of them's a Wow to the Watcher. There's one, Entropy is there, which is a huge deity in the MCU. The Living Tribunal head is there.
That's true. I remember
What if these, Celestials have been watching over all of reality in the 616, and they're like, man, this Jane chick, Thor really put her through the ringer. She had the ether, then this, and maybe that's the cause of the cancer. Here's how we're gonna help her. We need a Thor to help with maybe multiversal things or cosmic massive things. So what if Jane is chosen by one of those giant cosmic Marvel entities?
I would like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. And I mean, there has to be a reason why the hammer is there. And if you're telling me it's so she could be the Thor in space and Thor stays back on Earth or whatever the case may be, I'm totally on board with that, because that got me thinking of how does this connect to the MCU, right? The greater MCU. Yep. And in the comics, there's this superhero team called the Asgardians of the Universe, right? Kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, but with all Asgardian characters. So now if you're going to tell me that this female Thor, right, Jane Foster Thor, is going to be outgoing into space because she's I've been on Earth my whole life, this is my chance to go to explore, and she creates essentially a new team. Maybe people from the Warriors 3, maybe it's Korg, and the Crab Guy and all these other characters.
Korg and Meek?
Yeah, Korg and Meek and all these other characters with Valkyrie. They could go and kind of like have their own like superhero Asgardian team, and they could do things because, like I said, Marvel loves themes, or at least it seems like they're setting up for all these kind of themes, or maybe that's just our mindset. That would be cool. Like, oh, maybe it's like Odin who can't really help, and he's like from the grave. He's like, do this, and then partner with these people, and then help people. I don't know. I think that'd be cool if she was in like the as Guardians of the Galaxy. They do their own different version of that for the MCU, and then she gets to go explore space, and that takes that one character and evolves her into heights unknown because, you know, literally she's out in outer space.
Yeah, I kind of like the view of her just being on her own as this Thor.
Okay.
Exploring things in space and just absolutely like enamored with it because she's a scientist, right? From the second we see her in Thor 1, she's looking at the stars, trying to figure stuff out. She's in depth in the science of space and how everything works. And to have a first person view of that, like, it'd be hard not to use that and be like, oh yeah, hey, I feel great as Thor. I don't feel like I have cancer. While I'm using this, I'm fine. It's when I stop using it. So is there kind of an addictive quality to it? Is there, you know, the question theory of it, of like, are you really going to do this and hurt yourself more? Or like, you know, all that back and forth, I think would be great for this character, and be in space, you know, figuring stuff out. Like we had that line in the trailer where she's like, this is my first supervillain. And it just so happens to be Gorr the God Butcher. I think you need a team up for that. But I think whether she's investigating, like she's the one who's investigating Gorr's crimes or where he's been already, maybe something that, you know, we had this mystery of like, well, how did she get the power? Like, who gave it? Was it given to her? Was she summoned? Like, how did this happen? Has she been traveling space this whole time? I think that would be really cool to see, almost like a Norrin Rad Silver Surfer kind of hint there.
Before we go into Gorr the God Butcher and our thoughts and theories upon that, we know we saw the Guardians in the Galaxy in this. I think we're all on the same page. They're going to be here for a very short period of time. But how funny would it be, like, at the end of the movie when it all wraps up? They're like, we want Thor, we want you back on the Guardians of the Galaxy, because it kind of seems like they're kicking him out.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you know, I knew you guys would love me. And then they're like, no. And they point to Jane, and then Jane joins them. I thought that'd be funny.
That would be hilarious. I do think you are right on the money there. I think they're annoyed with Thor. Like Thor's, as we saw, like one of the funnier parts of Endgame, they're like him and Star-Lord's bickering, where he's like, yeah, we know who the leader is.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be tired of Thor. And like, I think also he still has that little like, crap, like he's so good looking and so perfect, where like, you know, Thor is going to have that montage where he gets all like ripped again. And Star-Lord's just going to be like, damn it. So like, I think they're going to be kind of tired of him. Also, I was thinking of like at the end, like we see Drax in the background, like I saw the whole thing, like you did, but no one saw him. Like he actually was basically blending in the background, and it does like a montage of everywhere he was just watching.
That'd be a good like after credit scene. And
that would be a great
just
after
popcorn
credit scene
everywhere. But like, oh, there he is. He's been there the whole time.
Oh my god, he's there too, and like he's just everywhere. But I do think we will get a little bit of like an inclination of what they've been doing since Endgame, right? The Guardians is the other big entity of the MCU that we don't have any kind of updated info about. I'm guessing they're looking for Gamora. I'm guessing, you know, they're out there trying to find her and establish that relationship again. I know obviously Peter's probably doing that. Yeah. So that's going to be maybe a crux leading into what we know will be the Groot holiday special later on this year on Disney Plus before Guardians 3 next year, I believe.
Now we can focus on Gorr the God Butcher, right? He is a monster in the comics. I don't think you guys are prepared. He is the God Butcher. He kills gods. So that's the first question. Who's he killing? It better not be friggin' Hemsworth. It might be. It might be like, oh, he kills Jane. He kills like a Thor, and that like her whole arc is done in one movie because he kills her. That could be kind of cool. We did see Greek gods over there. We saw Zeus and all them people. Maybe he kills a bunch of them. Do you have any any theories on who he's killing?
Yeah, I think Olympus will fall. I think Olympus is done. I think it's going to be a Kratos situation where they turn around and he's just standing there. I have no like qualms about that, which I think is going to be a great scene because it seems like the Greek gods are actually bigger than the nether gods, right? They're like 10, 11 feet tall. So that's going to be cool. I think they're going to be done fairly quickly. As for everyone else, I think there's a chance certain Celestials are going to go down. Because like ones that are kind of unknown, right? Not like crazy important Celestials, like but ones like I don't know, like ones that are kind of like extricated, like maybe ones we've seen in Eternals. Maybe that connects to Eternals.
Just random like those Celestial like armor 2 people he's just going to be killing?
Exactly. Like he wants to kill all gods. For those of you who don't know, his story in the comics is basically he prayed to the gods. His family was sick. They died.
Yeah.
And he just, in rage, went after every god. And as he killed gods one after one, he got more powerful. He uses this weapon called Necro Black Sword, Black the Necro Sword, whatever way you want to say it.
We got to talk about that.
But that sword, Rob, I mean, that connects to so many things in Marvel. It connects to the symbiotes. It connects to Null. We just had the rock star himself, Donny Cates, do this epic Venom arc in the comics where Null is brought into the fruition and the Necro Sword and kind of this like celestial god of the symbiotes is there. What do you think about that?
First of all, like the whole idea of the god of the symbiotes, Null, is, I love it. Donny Cates' run is fantastic. If you haven't read it, go read it, go check it out. But to know that weapon is the god of the symbiotes. I mean, maybe he killed him and that's how he got the weapon in the MCU. I don't know if they're going to touch upon Null at all because it's a huge can of worms. And it's like, oh, what about Venom? The Sony thing. It's too many different things. I don't think they're going to touch upon that, at least now. I think maybe down the line, and then like once they figure out what they're gonna do, they're like, oh, do you remember the Necro Sword? Yeah, Thor. He's like, oh yeah, Gorr the God Butcher killed it, and now they're gonna have to face like the guy who made it. That could be setting up for connections down the line. I think that's cool. I think the only thing we need to know right now for this movie is that this weapon is super strong. It's gonna be very efficient at killing any guy that he points it to. But I guess the more important question, I'm like, how he's going to kill gods and what he's going to do in this movie, stuff like that. It's the MCU plague, and they don't know what to do with their villains.
Yeah.
Is he a one-and-done villain, Chris? Or is he somebody that's going to be around for a long time? Because in the comics, he's around for a little bit. You know, he dies, he comes back, and all that kind of fun stuff. But what do you think the MCU is going to do with him?
I really hope he's not a one-and-done villain, Rob, because he's a character I know you and I both love from the comics. Christian Bale is playing him. They're already paying the guy. So I don't see how he could be a one-and-done villain where it's just, oh, we fought him and defeated him, that's it. This character leans into so many things that the MCU as a whole right now is discussing and teasing and moving forward in their next phases, right? Celestials, massive gods, cosmic entities. Like, Gorr the God Butcher himself is a plague. He is like a horrible storm that never relents. It never lets up. And Thor himself wasn't enough to beat him, even in the comics. So that's why we see, in this trailer, you see Valkyrie up there. You see, Jane's there. All of them are there. It's going to take a lot of people to take this guy down. Hopefully, I don't want them to kill him. I hope it's like a depowered situation. Maybe they break the Necro Sword.
I think that's probably the most likely answer.
And maybe he starts back from the beginning, crawling. Maybe that's the tease of Null, or that's the tease of the symbiotes and stuff like that, where we get this, like, Gorr is barely alive, like crawling, in whatever the pieces of the sword are left. And like Null finally answers the call, like his final prayer to the gods, but Null answers, not the good ones, which would be so badass.
And I think we're moving towards a villain instead of being one and done. I think some of these bigger ones they're going to be like mini Thanoses, right? It's going to be like, all right, it's going to be a couple of movies. It's going to be a little bit of a story to tackle this one and take him down. Like this Kang one. I don't think Kang is going to be the overall villain for the next phase. I think he's going to be a villain that a lot of people are going to have to team up and take down, and it's going to take a little while for this Kang story to be done, just like this Gorr the God Butcher story. And that's going to be the Asgardians, Guardians of the Galaxy, all that kind of space stuff. And we're going to get this quantum realm stuff, this time stuff. And then there's going to be this another individual, whatever the mainline Avengers are going to face, and it's going to be taken through Avengers, Thunderbolts, and that kind of stuff. I think they're kind of learning from the mistake instead of leaning it all on one person. Kind of having this era where it's like multiple big threats are here, and then like you could have more of a fluid of like, oh, there's this threat, and then there's this threat. And it could easily be in any one of those situations because of comic book science, right?
Yeah.
That like, all right, the MCU as a whole has taken out 2 of these threats, and this one threat's left, and then somehow for some way it just gets insert comic line or comic science here gets crazier than that, and then more people have to team up to take them down. I can see that kind of model being at least in place for a little while, and I think that'd be really fun to see instead of everything's like when's Thanos, because if you're just focused on one guy and they're trying to expand their universe at the rate that they're expanding, it's not going to be as fulfilling, because it's going to be like, what, 5 seconds in this movie about Thanos, or let's say it's Kang, 5 seconds about this one about Kang, and this one about Kang, or even if it's Galactus, we're like, no. We want multiple stuff going on, and then maybe even another bigger threat's coming up and we don't know what to handle first. I think that's a better angle.
No, I agree with you. And something you said there, which I really like, is the multiple threats at the same time scenario, right? Comics in general, guys, it's, everything's happening almost at the same time. Yeah. It's so hard to figure out timelines sometimes, but that, and it takes away that, well, where the hell was Thor when this was happening? Or where the hell was this person, right? Like, you're dealing with Gorr over here. This one's dealing with Kang over here. They're dealing with the Thunderbolts over here. Like, people are busy. It's not like, oh, I didn't get the call for Civil War, right? But we also don't want scenarios like we had with Ultron, where like you go to the cartoon version of What If, and it's so much better than the live action version.
True.
So those things, I think, yes, they are going to fix, and I think they have that kind of edge with Disney Plus, right? Yeah. You can make those shows. You can make these characters' origins, like Kang starts out in Loki. We know he's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's definitely not ending in Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? So I think we're going to have these characters grow and a little more origin and make them a little more gray, kind of how they started with Thanos, right? Why are you doing this? It's not just I'm evil, I'm here to destroy. It's no, where are the understanding qualities of these villains, right? Gorr is going to be one of those complex characters, right? Where it's gonna question religion a lot. It's gonna question belief systems. It's gonna question, right and wrong for the right reasons. All those things are gonna be enveloped in the DNA of this movie. So I'm very excited for that, and I want to see more of that going forward in the MCU. But I do think Kang is the next big bad. Just saying that.
Well, we'll find out very soon. Last we talked about everybody, we got to talk about the main man himself, Thor.
Can't forget the beautiful man.
I think seeing his butt is all we need in the end. No, I have this apprehension that they're gonna get rid of Chris Hemsworth, and I know that's not true. I know he's gonna be around for a while. I know they said we want him to stay. He's gonna be doing a lot of stuff. I don't know what his next step is, right? He's gonna go fight Thor, Gorr the God Butcher. He's gonna realize that he needs to be a god. Maybe he's gonna be king of Asgard or something. I don't really know what his story arc is gonna be here, aside from this redemption arc, right? He got fat, he got out of shape. He said Valkyrie had a lead. He didn't feel right. His daddy died. His brother died. He's not sure what to do. And I feel like now this is like, all right, he's rebuilding himself, much like Gorr the God Butcher is rebuilding himself because he's doing this kind of stuff. And then maybe at the end of this, he's like, I'm Thor, Odin's son, god or king of Asgard, and I need to do this. Valkyrie can handle the day-to-day stuff. He goes back to meet his friends on Midgard and fight other heroes. I mean, fight other villains and other stuff, protect the universe. I think that's what it is, him becoming a hero again. Other than that, I don't really know what they would do.
So I think we got a small hint in the trailer already. And I think that hint is the tattoos on Thor's back. He has obviously everyone's looking everywhere else, but if you look at his back, he has like Loki's horns with RIP in it. He has all these tattoos for all his past and the death. And that obviously played a big part in him gaining all that weight and being a recluse after he loses to Thanos and blaming himself for not going for the head, as Thanos said. And I think we're going to get a mental redemption of Thor. We're going to get internal inner peace is what he's seeking. There's a beautiful shot of him. Well, all the shots of him are beautiful, but there's a beautiful shot of him in front of this tree on this cliff, and it just focuses on like Thor's like godlike blue eyes, right? They almost look like they're full of electricity, and he's like, almost like he's in a Buddhist mindset where he's trying to find inner peace. I think that's a major part of this film, where he is all the loss he has sustained. He's like 1,500 years old, right? He's a god, but he's gone through all this loss. His mother, relationship with Jane, right? We know that's going to come back up. His father, his sister, his brother, right? Like everyone he knows and loves is gone. Tony Stark, right? Spoiler alert. So like all these people, his friends, his family have died. He's the one who survives and has to watch everyone die and think about it constantly. So there might be some of a little bit of a survivor's remorse there, right? So I think we're going to get some type of Thor is going to come back into his own, right? We haven't seen Thor with the long godlike hair since Thor 2, the Dark World.
I like it with the short hair. I'll be honest. I don't like it with the long hair.
Oh, I love the long Thor hair. It's right. It's like right out of the comics. And as far as like you being worried about Thor being gone, if this was circa like 2010, 12 when Dark World came out and Hemsworth was really upset about how things were going, I'd be nervous. But I think with Taika Waititi taking the handle on this, he's been so much happier in the way Thor's been going.
100%.
So I think with those two guys together working on this stuff, how hard he works, especially physically for this role, I think Thor, Chris Hemsworth is in a great spot in the MCU right now, and I'm so excited to see his arc. And damn it, Rob, if they don't give me Beta Ray Bill, I swear to God.
I don't think
I
you get Beta.
swear to God, we better get Beta Ray Bill for this.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is our thoughts and theories on Thor: Love and Thunder. Let us know what you think is going to happen in the movie down in the comments below.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, like, really helps the channel out a lot. And if you're new, subscribe. Turn on notifications. You do not want to miss our breakdown of Thor: Love and Thunder when it hits theaters. And guys, if you miss anything on the channel, it's right here for you always. And as always, my name is Chris Heller. That's Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we will see you next time.